graphs is, what we are doing is we are taking the data that we were able to clean, the data that we were able to collect in the previous past classes, and then we are trying to make it more presentable, because we understand that in communicating a message as a company or as an organization or even as an individual, it is a bit tricky for us to be able to actually communicate to other people just through the data tables and the data that we were collecting, and like in the structured way that we were able to look at. So what graphs do is it takes that data and it presents it in a way that is attractive and in a way that is very clear to understand. And then you can be able to communicate your message in a much more clear, more effective, and much more faster way. So what we are going to look at are those two things. We are going to really focus on different types of graphs, and we are going to try and cover as much as possible. So I really look forward to us understanding and learning something from this class. Just going to do some definitions. And I'm just going to use the PowerPoint and then be able to read and explain how I've structured each individual point. So the first introduction definition we're going to have is a graph. So a graph is a pictorial representation of a diagram that represents data or values in an organized manner. The points of the graph often represent relationships between two or more things. So what we are doing is, when you collect the data, you're collecting data about something or somebody, and you're collecting data about that person, but also much more than just about a particular person. You're also collecting data to explain more about that person. So what I mean by that is, it's not just random and unstructured, but the way it is it has a clear format and it has a clear expectations, because we understand that in an organization, data is not abstract and it's not a standalone item. It's actually part of the processes. It's part of the business plans. It's part of the marketing schedules and all that. So what data does is able to get the streamline of the organization and able to help us communicate our message in a much more clear way. And then a visualization is any technique for creating images. Visualization through visual imagery has been an effective way to communicate both abstract and concrete ideas since the dawn of humanity. So what visualization does is it takes people from just mere abstraction and numbers and all that into something that's much more concrete that people can be able to relate with in a much more concise way. We're going to look at some classifications of visualizations or classifications of data visualizations, and we are going to go through, I think, 2 or 3 items. So the first one is computer-aided visualizations, and what that basically means is visualizations that are done using a computer. So it's not manual, like doing it with your hand. And there are 2 types, static and motion. So static, I mean something like a bar graph. It's not moving, it's actually static, just exactly like what the word means. But for motion, it's a visualization that moves over time. That one of the building components of that visualization is it's actually a motion picture or a kind of video that explains a point that you're trying to communicate. And then the other second classification of visualization is handcrafted visuals. So this is whereby people use their artistic creativity to be able to communicate a message and to be able to explain the point that they want to show to the audience. So what that does is it really gives a breathing space and a leeway for creative people. For example, if you are good in drawing, if you're skilled in actually being able to visualize the data that you have in a way that you can understand, can be able to bring in your creativity and be able to use it to explore the kind of visualization that you can be able to create. We are going to look at that when we get towards the end. So we're going to look at some tools that you can be able to use. So these are for computer aided. Of course, for For handcrafted, that is just your own pure creativity. But for the tools that we are going to look at are computer-based tools that you can be able to use to communicate your message. So the first one we are going to look is Datawrapper, which is a simple and easy tool, which offers 3 types of visualizations: charts, maps, and tables. It focuses on mobile responsiveness and ease of use to get more people visualizing. So what that tool does is it just gives you the ability to be able to visualize your data in terms of charts, in terms of maps, and in terms of tables. So for tables, just a combination of rows and columns. Maps are geographic maps mostly. So things like, let's say, communicating the distribution of vaccines across the world, or communicating, let's say, the GDP using a world map. So that's what we mean by map. And then the charts are basic things like line charts, bar graphs, pie charts, and all those kind of stuff. Flourish is another data visualization tool that lets you easily create interactive maps and charts. It was built by a data studio called Kiln, based in London, and it offers beautifully designed data visualization templates. So those are the 2 tools we are going to study in the course of today and the day after tomorrow. And so what Flourish does is it gives you the ability to be able to create interactive maps. By interactive, I mean they have responsiveness. So you can actually be able to zoom in, and you can be able to use the data to classify in terms of area, in terms of size, and all that. Power BI is another very famous tool and very prevalent. And it's a powerful cloud-based business analytics service from Microsoft that enables anyone to visualize and analyze data with better speed and efficiency. So the goodness with Power BI is it gives you the ability to be able to create dashboards. So dashboards really is just several visualizations that are put together, and then you can be able to alter and work on with the responsiveness. So Datawrapper and Power BI are tools that you need to install on your computer, so you can be able to download them and use them offline. But Flourish, it is web-based, so you have to be online for you to be able to use the tool. And Tableau Public is very similar to Power BI, but it also offers robust tools for data storytellers. It has a free version, except that everything that you create is publicly visible. So it's very similar to Power BI, even in terms of how it is structured and in terms of how you can be able to apply it. And then Timeline is a very effective tool that I stumbled into and as I was doing the research for this class. And it's an open source tool that enables anyone to build visually rich and interactive timelines. So a link that I have put there is an explanation, is an article that tells us several other visualization tools. And if you want to access the one for Timeline, is part of that link, and we are going to post it in the class once the lesson is over. So I really encourage each of us to go through especially this link that I have provided here, because it gives us an explanation for several types of tools, and because the visualization depends on very many things. It depends on the data type that you have. It depends on the data type. It depends with the audience that you want to target. It depends on the amount of data that you have. So those tools are actually explained down there so that you can be able to know which tool is more appropriate for the kind of data that you have for a particular situation. So I really encourage us to be able to go through it and ensure that we can be able to have a look at them. Any question on visualization tools? I'm going to share the presentation in the Google Classroom, so each of you can be able to go through the slides at your own pace. So we want us now to look at common types of data visualization graphs. So really now what we are doing is we are getting deeper into the actual graphs, because the other slides were just the basic introduction on the tools and also on the data types, and also for the kind of visualization that you can be able to have. But what we are now going to do is we're going to look at common types of data visualization graphs. So this is for computer aided. So I'm just going to go through them. Then we are going to have an understanding of each of them. So I'm just going to list each of them. So the first type we have are charts. We have tables. So charts are things like line charts, bar charts, column charts. We have pie charts and all those kind of charts. We have tables. So for tables, this is where you can be able to use Excel and Google Sheets, and also some other tools like Flourish to be able to use tables as an explainer tool. So what that means is it provides you with the ability to be able to include filters so that you can be able to see how the data has been classified in a way that you do not have to really do the charts and all that, but you can just be able to see how the data has been classified through the charts, through the tables. And we have graphs. Graphs are very similar to charts. Maps, of course, they are three-dimensional visualization tools. Not really tool, but visualization graphs to be able to explain things like distribution of GDP and stuff like that. So what maps does is it has a basic layer for the map. So for we can have the map for South Sudan, we can have the map for Kenya, we can have the map for Africa, for Eastern Africa. So what it does is it gives you the template. So the template, instead of having columns and rows like data tables, it provides you with the maps for the countries. Then you can be able to put in your data, provides you the coloring and all that. We're going to look at it when you look at the Flourish. So infographics are a summarized version of a summarized way to be able to use colors and visualization to be able to explain your data. We're going to look at the examples later. So dashboards, I think I've already explained on that. So those are the common types of visualization we are going to encounter. So most of the data that we are working with in our various organizations, at least you can be able to visualize using one of these tools. We're going to look at several examples, except for dashboards, because dashboards is a bit complicated. So that will require a different class in and of itself. And also for infographics, but we're going to look at examples of infographics. But for maps, graphs, and tables and charts, we're going to actually do practicals to be able to make them, both using Flourish and also using Datawrapper. So we are going to look at two things. So this is a general ground rule that you can be able to use to determine if your chart will have the desired effect or it will actually have the reverse effect of what you want to achieve. We're going to look at characteristics of effective graphs, and we are going to look at what constitutes a bad chart. So for characteristics, these are things that are basic ground rules that enable you to be able to produce a chart that communicates the message in a way that is effective and in a way that is appropriate for the context and for the target audience that you want to communicate your message to. So the first thing is avoid chart junk. So by that I mean, ensure that your chart is not cluttered. It does not have too much information. So not have so many explanations, so many colors. Try and use one or two colors to be able to really provide the explanation for what you are trying to communicate. And then no background color. I know that might be a bit of a surprise, but the problem with the background color is it really takes away the attention from the actual graph. So it is very, very distracting, especially if it is a bright color. So just use a plain color, so something like white, so that you not take away the attention of the viewer, of the observer, from the actual visualization that you are using to communicate a particular message. Because remember, we said that data visualization is not just pure abstract stuff. It is actually a part of a system that companies and organizations use to be able to communicate a particular message to a target audience. So if you have too much background color or something that is very shouting, it's going to really take away the attention. So another thing is no grid lines except for absolute position. So grid lines is also very destructive, especially if you have bright colors of grid lines. But if you have so many grid lines, we are going to look at examples of bad charts. But what I mean by absolute position, when you are trying to communicate a message of, let's say, for example, something like, so when you want to communicate a message of, let's say, something like using a scatter plot, what the grid lines help you to achieve is they really help to provide the intersection for the 2 points that you want to really highlight that this is actually an intersection, or this is the meeting point for the two variables or the two values that we are trying to see if there's any correlation. Because what a scatter plot does is it explains to you the correlation between two items. So what I mean by absolute position is the audience have to really see that this is exactly where these points meet. So that, let's say, for example, if you are doing GDP versus lifespan for the country, you can be able to use the grid lines to be able to really explain the precision of, in terms of like explaining that the life expectancy for a high income country is not 80, but it is, let's say, something like 76 or 75. So that's the only time you can be able to use grid lines. But basically, in terms of doing the visualizations, you do not really need to use the grid lines. Then, of course, no legends. A no legend applies if you can be able to place the labels next to the series, because the data is explained or visualized in terms of a series. So if you can be able to put in explanation and the labels, there's no need for you to be able to have the legend, because really the point of us doing the visualization is we want to communicate a message, and we want to reduce anything from the graph that takes away the attention of the audience from the message that we want to communicate. So that's why we are saying no background color, avoid too much information, and do not have grid lines except when it's needed, and things like legends you do not need to also include them. And then some of the things that constitute a bar chart, I know that is also another very basic ground rule. If you have a chart that has no labels, my friend, that is a very bad chart. So it can be, because the problem with something like that is it can be able to mean anything. If I have a bar chart or a column chart that does not have any labels, no titles, no axis labels, nothing, it can be able to mean anything. And somebody can actually be able to use it to be able to do anything that they want. And then another bad characteristic of a bad chart is wrong labels. So if your title says a third of high income countries have this amount of life expectation, and then you use something like a bar chart, a pie chart, and then you are having the chart displaying, let's say, half, that is not a good chart. You really need to, the consistency has to be there between the labels, the legends, if you include it, and also for the actual visualization that you are using. And of course, if you have too many labels, it's also not very good, because what that does is it creates a distraction and makes it hard for the audience to be able to understand the message that you want to communicate. So that marks the end of the first part of the class. So what we now want to do is we want to look at, unless of course if somebody has a question, maybe if somebody has a question, we can be able to now raise a question here. Or you can be able to put your questions on the chat box, and then Peter is going to compile them for me. Then we can be able to answer after the end of the first session. So I'll try to move a bit faster because the class is quite long. So we have categories of graphs. So what we're going to look at are specific categories. We're going to look at quite a number of them. So I know people might be overwhelmed with the amount of content, but what we want to do, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this class on the Google Classroom, the visualization, the PowerPoint. so that you can be able to go through it at your own free time. So temporal is another visualization belongs in the temporal category if it satisfies two conditions. One is that they are linear and that they are one-dimensional. They normally feature lines that either stand alone or overlap with each other with a start and finish time. I'm just going to look at some examples. Things like scatter plots, polar area diagrams, time series sequences, timelines, line graphs. So temporal is a visualization that highlights a temporary phenomenon. So what I mean by temporary is it has a start and a finish line, and it's a one-dimensional thing. It's not several. It's not more than one-dimensional. So it's not two-dimensional. It's not three-dimensional. It's one-dimensional, and it has a start and a finish. So we're going to look. We are going to look at the examples for each of them. So temporal. I'm just going to open the file. So temporal, we have things like scatter plots. So a scatter plot is a graph in which the values of two variables are plotted along two axes, the pattern of the resulting points revealing any correlation present. So remember, I said that scatter plots are used to visualize correlation between two variables. So it's used to determine whether or not two variables have a relationship or correlation. So by correlation, we mean if they are related to each other. So what this does is it enables you to be able to see patterns and that you can now be able to use to conclude whether there is a relation between those two variables or there is no any relationship. So what for scatter plots, there are two types. There is one type that you can be able to use to explain inverse correlation. By inverse correlation, I mean a scatter plot that highlights the correlation between two variables in such a way that when one increases, the other decreases. So they are not directly correlated, which is the other type. The other type is of course direct correlation. But for the inverse correlation, the increase in one variable results in the decrease of the other variable. So things like, let's say, for example, GDP and something like poverty levels in a country. The more GDP, the more output the country has, the less the poverty scale reduces for the country. So that is an inverse correlation. But direct correlation is the increase in one variable results in the increase in the other variable. So something like the example that I have now here. So like you can be able to use it to explain that, let's say, for example, something like, I like using GDP a lot because of the research we were doing some few time ago. But I usually like using it in my examples because it's a very direct and it's something that I can be able to correlate with. So something that can be able to have a direct correlation is increase in literary rates versus increase in use in smartphones. That can have a direct correlation, and then the increase in literacy levels in a country also results in the increase in the number of smartphones that are being used in that country. So that is how you can be able to use it to be able to explain. Then a line graph is a basic type of chart used to show information that changes over time. We plot line graphs using several points connected by a straight line. So you see the difference now for a scatter plot and a line chart is the line graph, the points are connected because we are showing progress over time, change over time. But for the scatter plots, you're just having random points. So that's really the main difference between the two. So a line chart, we are plotting, we plot line graphs using several points connected by a straight line, just like the example that I have used there. So this example, we are using it to highlight the sales of the produce, change over time. So we have the months as the x-axis, and then the y-axis we have the amount of sales that we are having. So you can be able to really see that this is the amount of sales that we had for a particular time, and then you can be able to see how the progress has occurred over time. So uses to plot sales over time, plot rainfall for a city over several months of the years, then several other things. And then we're going to look at the other two, time series. Time series is a sequence of data points that occur in successive order over some period of time, useful for economic forecasting, stock market analysis, budgetary analysis, etc. So a time series is basically like a line chart, but we are using it to also, so we are using it to be able to highlight the occurrence of items over a period of time. So you can do it with economic forecasting, stock market analysis, budgetary analysis, etc. But then for a polar area diagram, what we are using is we have, it's similar to a usual pie chart, except sectors are equal, angles and different, rather in how far each sector extends from the center of the circle. Used to plot cyclic phenomena like counts of days per month or amount of rainfall that has happened over the years or something like that. Or crop production for the months of the year. So hierarchical is the second type. Yeah, my time today is really fast. So hierarchical is a data visualization that belongs in the hierarchical category, in that it orders groups within larger groups. They are best suited if you are looking to display clusters of information, especially if they flow from a single origin. So what we are doing is we are creating a hierarchy of data visualizations. So we are explaining the difference in the groups and subgroups that constitute the data that we have. Examples include a tree diagram, ring charts, tree diagrams and ring charts. So we're going to look at each of them. So a ring chart is something like a sunburst. A sunburst is we have a central point, and then we have rings that are spread out. So the closer the ring to the center, the more it is used to display a larger subgroup. So you see now what we are doing is we are using the main groups, the main categories as the center, as the and then the more we go out, the more we are giving specifications on the products or on the subgroups of the groups that we were used to explain the first process. So it's used to visualize hierarchical data depicted as concentric circles. The circle in the center represents the root node with the hierarchy moving outwards from the center. So it's like a tree diagram. A tree diagram, okay, in fact, this is actually the next example we are going to look at. A tree diagram is we have a root node, and then we have branches, and then we have sub-branches, until we get to the final part of the visualization. So a tree diagram is a tool that helps calculate the number of possible outcomes of a problem and size these potential outcomes in an organized way. So I'm sure we have all encountered a tree diagram in high school when we were doing probability. So what it does is it explains to us the probability of an event occurring, and it moves away from the center, as it goes through the subcategories that are being represented in the data. So the third category is a network graph. So data sets connect. Sometimes you find the data sets connect deeply with other data sets. So a network data visualization shows how they relate to one another within a network. So what this does is, instead of having the hierarchy, it's just connections and the relationships between the data that we are having. So examples are matrix charts, node link diagrams, and word clouds and alluvial diagrams. So just going to look at some examples. So a node link diagram is also called a node graph or a network map. So it shows how things are interconnected through the use of nodes or vertices and link lines to represent their connections and help to eliminate the type of relationships between a group of entities. So that is for the network graph. Then a matrix chart shows relationships between two or more variables in a data set in a grid format. The same
Hello, everyone. Looks like we lost Steve, but then let's just wait for a couple of minutes and hopefully we can get back. In the meantime, if you have any questions, if you have comments that you would like to make, you're welcome. Otherwise, I hope you guys are learning a lot. And is there any person whose name is not in the attendance list? Oh, yeah. I hope you guys are getting the concepts of data visualization well. So we should be seeing you guys writing data stories and seeing how you can sort of use data analysis in your reports and present your reports. And some of you are students preparing for research. You can easily do analysis of your data using some of the tools that you're being introduced to. Any questions or comments of everything is okay? And Lindsay, this person is saying he's not in the WhatsApp group. I hope you have joined. Yeah, so let me give a chance to anyone who would like to talk. Let us hear some of you talk. Anything you want to say, you can raise your hand.
Yeah, Bidai attendance.
Yes, work. You want attendance?
Yes.
Still, it's not time. It's still not time for attendance.
It's okay.
Yeah, but let me check. Let me check if I can get it. Oh, yeah, I've forgotten it. So please, if your name is not in attendance, you drop your name in the chat box. Very important. Put your name in the chat box, and I should be able to add it. Yes. Anyone who would like to talk?
Yes, you tell him later to share the document after the training.
Oh, the presentation?
Yeah, because some of us missed because of network before.
Oh yeah, he will share. He will share. The presentation will be shared in the Google Classroom, and you guys can check out. Good. Work. I have put the attendance in the chat box, so kindly fill the attendance, and in case your name is not there, you can let me know. Steve, you're welcome back. Unfortunately, you were knocked out by the network.
Just someone's hand is up.
Whose hand?
Bida, can you enable me to share the screen?
Oh yeah, let me just do that.
Okay.
Yeah, you can share the screen now. Oh, okay, the facilitator is back, and yeah, enjoy your session, guys.
So those are the network visualizations that we have. The node link and the matrix, and then the other one we have is the word cloud. So a word cloud is we are using words to be able to display the information that we want to do. So what it does is it's just a bunch of words, and then the more times a word appear in the list of the words that you have or in the article that you have, the more it's going to have more prominence, and it's going to be much bigger. So you see that it's just a word cloud. So it's a cloud of words. It's a collection of words in which the number of appearances for a particular word determine the size it will have in the word cloud. So it displays how frequently a word
Looks like we lost him again. Looks like we lost him again. Yeah, Grace, the network looks bad, but we hope that he will bounce back. Kaya Kennedy, the frequency of a word by how many times it's used, like how many times people use it. For instance, on social media, how many people write a particular word, or how many people use a particular hashtag. So that determines the number of times a particular word will appear on a word cloud, or how big a word will be reflected on a word cloud. And so with the
so multidimensional is a visualization
issue tool that he uses,
that
so
have multiple.
it's artificial intelligence that counts the word.
Bida, you are asking a question? Hello?
That and over to you.
Hello? So, hello, can you guys hear me? Hello?
Yes, Steve, we are getting you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Seems like my power is good, but we'll continue. So multidimensional is, we are just like the name, multidimensional data visualization have multiple dimensions. This means that there are always two or more variables in the mix to create a three-dimensional data visualization. Because of the many concurrent layers and data sets, these types of visualizations tend to be the most vibrant or eye-catching. And another thing is they can break down a ton of data to key takeaways. So going to look at examples. So a stacked bar chart. So a stacked bar chart is a chart that uses bars to show comparisons between categories of data, but with the ability to break down and compare parts of a whole. Each bar in the chart represents a whole, and segments in the bar represents different parts or categories of that whole. So for this particular example that I have, we have expenses listed for a particular month. So what we have is we have several months, and then inside the several months, each month has its own expenses being listed down. So you find that you can actually be able to understand what is taking up much of the resources that you have for a particular month, and then you can be able to visualize it and see where you can be able to cut down and be able to see where to be able to adjust. So you see that for something like rent is stable because it's something that is constant. It not have different rents for different months. But you see for something like food, you can be able to see that some months are not equal to the rest. So you find that one month you have spent a lot of money on food, and then the other months maybe you have spent a little less. So you can be able to really be able to categorize and understand what is the problem there. And also for gas, for fuel for your car, can be able to see that the months they are not very stable, but each month depends on how much trips, how much traveling you have done using your car. So that is a stacked bar chart, and then a pie chart is a normal way to be able to use a circle chart or a circular chart. It's a circular statistical graphic which divides into slices to illustrate numerical proportion. In a pie chart, the arc length of each slice is proportional to the quantity it represents. So what we mean by arc length is the angle, like the size of the angle between the two variables. So you see now for shower has a 16.8% share, but you see now is smaller than, let's say, the one for toilet, and so and then was slightly bigger than the one for, let's say, faucet or lifts. So you can be able to use a pie chart to be able to break it down, visualization that you want to see. So a Venn diagram. A Venn diagram uses overlapping circles or other shapes to illustrate the logical relationships between two or more sets of items. They serve to graphically organize things, highlighting how the items are similar or different. So you see now, this is a Venn diagram of a tomato and an apple. You see that the tomato is red flesh, mushy, savory, but the apple is red flesh, firm and sweet. But then they have similarities. Both of them are fruits, both of them are round, both of them have a smooth skin. So a Venn diagram, you can be able to really use to segment like the differences and the similarities between two items, instead of just highlighting them in terms of text. And then a normal histogram plus is a plot that lets you discover and show the underlying frequency distribution of a set of continuous data. This allows the inspection of the data for its underlying distribution. So here we have the class, and then we have the frequency. So it's just a basic statistical graph to be able to represent the data that you have collected and classify it into segments that are easy to understand. Another type is your spatial visualization, also called spatial, relates to real-life physical locations overlaying familiar maps with different data points. These types of data visualizations are commonly used to display sales or acquisitions over time and can be mostly recognizable whether they are used in political campaigns or to display market penetration in multiple corporations. Just going to look at something like some examples. The first one is a flow map. A flow map is used to geographically show the movement of information of objects from one location to another one. It's mainly used to show migration data of people, animals, and products. The maximum amount migration in a single flow line is represented by its thickness. So you see, for example, for this one, this flow map shows a distribution from a hub, from a center, from a distribution location to different other destinations. So the farther the destination, the longer the line, of course, is going to be, the farther away the destination is. But then there is another way, another very important scale is how thick the line between the two destinations is used to display like the amount of traffic flow, the amount of cargo, the amount of people moving back and forth between the two places. So you see that we have a central location. We have of course, a basic chart. So this is a chart of the United States, and then the center is the location of this central part is Nashville, Tennessee. And then from there, it's distributing. We are distributing a certain product from different locations. So you see that we have 2 different states, and then we have thickness, different variables. And then, of course, a heat map. A heat map shows the data visualization technique that shows marked visual phenomenon as color in 2 dimensions. The variations in color may be by hue or intensity, giving obvious visual cues to the reader about how the phenomenon is clustered or varies over space. So what this does is really it uses color as a scale. So what it does is, for example, for the temperature. So basically, usually what the standard use in terms of temperature is red. The more red it is, the more hotter the month is, and then the more green it is, the more cooler it is. So we are moving between those 2 variables, those 2 extremes, those 2 ends, and then the colors match in between. So that is a heat map and then a flow map. So we have a cartogram. So a cartogram is a value by area map, which modifies geographic regions such as countries in proportion to some variable of interest, such as population. These are popular georeference data visualizations that have been used for over centuries to illustrate patterns and trends in the world around us. So what it does is it takes a particular map, let's say the map for Africa, and then it overlays the information. So by overlaying, I mean, it's we are overlaying like the countries in terms of the scale. So you see now this one has 4 variables. So we have from 1 to 49, from 50 to 99, from 100 to 139, then from 140 upwards. So we are using it to display the population in millions. So you see that I can be able to see that Nigeria, which has the highest number of the highest population in Africa, it has its own unique color based on this scale. Then countries like Egypt and Ethiopia, then DRC is also very close to that margin. And then, of course, we have other countries, especially those in Western Africa that are very present, that are located in the Sahara region. They have far less population, and then countries like Somalia, countries like Djibouti, Eritrea. So you can be able to overlay the information and then use the colors to be able to modify how the visualization is going to be displayed. Then what I'm going to now look at is other visualizations. So these are visualizations that, especially since the start of this year, I'm not saying that they started being used this year, but I stumbled upon them at the beginning of the year. And I really thought that they were very fascinating visualizations, but I was not able to classify them among the general and the primary categories that are highlighted above. So most of these visualizations have been done by Al Jazeera Labs. And remember that at the beginning in the class that we had last week, I said that they are one of the people who are very good in using data visualization to be able to communicate the messages that they have. So they have done very, very cool visualizations, and I'm just going to explain them. So most of the visualizations that in this category have been done by them, but there are others that have not been done by them. So this one here, the first one, we are highlighting African Cup of Nations winners. So we have something like a central node, and then we have for each years, and then we have the countries that have won the Cup of Nations. So you see that for each year so we have a sort of scale. So we have 1940, 1960, and then all the way up to 2020. And then we have the countries being highlighted on these concentric circles. So you see, but for each year, so for Algeria, for example, we can be able to explain that, to show that they won in 1990 and 2019. And then the dots here at the top of above the names explain the size, the number of times that each country has won the Cup of Nations. So you see, for Egypt, it has won the most number of times. It has 7. DRC has 2. Ghana has 4. Ethiopia has 1 in 1962. Cote d'Ivoire has 2. And then these other countries, Sudan, Tunisia, South Africa, Nigeria, and Morocco, each have 1. So you see now it explains Cup of Nations, African Cup of Nations 1957 to 2019. Then we have an infographic, which is quite cluttered, I must admit, but it explains holiday spending by region in the world. So it has a lot of information. So for each country, it's explaining. So we have calendar of retail holidays, and then we have explanation for each sub-region that is represented there. So we have a stream graph. So a stream graph, this is somebody who actually explained. I found this on Twitter, and somebody used it to explain how they were able to use their time. So we have the flow in terms of moving from 2016 to 2006 to 2022, and then we have the explanation up here, which is the key to be able to explain how, like, what each color represents. So it's a stream graph. So you see it forms something like a river in terms of flow of time. So other visualizations continued. So another infographic for the Japan 2022 conflict, 2022 earthquake and tsunami. So we have the peak height of each wave. So the location for the history of earthquakes in Japan, then breakdown of gender and age, cause of death, casualties, and then the world's most expensive disasters. So it's just an infographic to give a basic explanation and try and also try to do a basic visualization that has all this information in one place. Is going to be very cluttered, but infographics are very good in capturing this kind of information. So this other one explains where are the world's conflicts. So you see that supposed to explain most of it. I'm going to share the class, the presentation, so that you can be able to go and zoom in and see how it looks like. And then, since the start of the war in Ukraine, there has been a flood of visualizations that have been done, especially by Al Jazeera Live. They are very good in their visualizations. So that's why I have actually designated a specific slide for a specific category for just the Ukraine invasion. So this one is a Sankey diagram, so explaining trade. So you can actually be able to do this with Flourish. We're going to look at how you can be able to do this. So the trade, who buys Russian and Ukrainian wheat. A quarter of the world's wheat exports come from Russia and Ukraine. So that's just explainer text. Then we have your source, then destination. So destination in terms of the amount of money that they pay, and then that determines how big the endpoint is going to be on this particular part. Then we see the movements between, let's say, for example, from Ukraine with the different countries that are highlighted on this part. Then we have the threat of conflict looms in Eastern Europe with 1 million troops amassed along the border with Ukraine. Russia denies it has any plans to attack. And then you see, of course, now we have a map of Russia and Ukraine, and then border countries like Belarus and the Baltic nations. And then we have how many troops are amassed at the particular location. So we have more troops amassed closely separate regions that were Donetsk and Luhansk. And then we have, of course, troops massed along the border between Ukraine and Russia. Then another one, now after the start of the war, we have where are Ukrainians fleeing to? So explain text, at least 360,000 people have fled Ukraine to Poland and other neighboring countries. And then you see now it highlights here, provides context, because somebody might just look at it and say, no more people were able to flee the conflict. But this is an explanation for day 4, 1300 GMT. Then we have several things. We have the countries, we have the movements of people, then we have the troops that are involved in the attack. So it's a very, very clear way to be able to explain the movement of people between Ukraine and the neighboring countries. So we are going to look at the last part of visualizations, which are hand-captured visualizations. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through the examples as I highlighted them. But all these examples have been done by one individual who's called Bona Chalabi. She's from Iraq, but she's currently based in the US. And she has really used her artistic ability to be able to communicate a message and to be able to reach a specific audience that she aims to target. So I'm just going to look at several examples of what she has done. Then we are going to really see how it completely deviates away from the norm and extrapolates the kind of creativity that you can be able to put into the visualization and the communication of the message that you intend to reach the audience. So definition, this is a creation of visual representations of data using hand-drawn or hand-made visuals instead of computer-aided graphics. So users, when one is not very skilled in computer-aided visuals and graphics, but you're good in creative writings, you can be able to use it. Then it can be used by artists. So I'm just going to look at several examples, which are very, very cool, I must admit. So that's why I had actually included her as one of the champions for data visualizations, in my own opinion, together with Al Jazeera Labs. I'm just going to look at examples. So here she uses this visualization to explain the number of decapitated animals found in New York parks. So for 2004 to 2014. So what she does is she has a scale, and then she has the image for that animal. And then, of course, when you decapitate an animal, blood flows out. So what she does is she uses the depiction of blood flowing to be able to show the number, which is highlighted on this scale. So you see, so for chicken, we have 50. For pigeons, we have about 45. Then we have for goats, we have for squirrels, and we have for cats. So what she does is she has really, really used, instead of using a normal line chart or a normal bar graph, she has just used the blood flow to be able to use it as the highlight for the number of animals. So space in America. So average parking space, and then average solitary confinement cell. So she's using it to provide a context to explain to normal day people how big the space that somebody's put into when they are imprisoned in solitary confinement, and then providing a context on the grid down here. So for 10 inches, 10 by 10 inches, and then we have the parking space, average parking space, and then the message that she wants to communicate to show how small the space used for solitary confinement is in America. Then, of course, how much P is a lot of P. So this is another visualization. So you see, she's very, very good in creativity. So she uses the bottles, and then so she uses 2 bottles, a can and a glass, to be able to show how big, like how much pee is that person producing. Then in terms of liters, and then so for decreased, and then for normal, what a normal person will do, and for increased. So you see that it's able to really communicate a message in a very, very understanding way that somebody can be able to really apply it in their context. And then this was used to show the proportion of women aged 15 to 49, believing that a husband has jurisdiction for striking his wife. So she uses the batches to be able to explain, though this particular one is not very clear. So what she has done is she has taken an image that was taken in Iraq of a woman walking past a building, and then she uses that and crops it and puts it together in terms of like the size, and then to use it to be able to really show the size of the location, and then of like to communicate these percentages that she's used to represent the various age groups. Then another one, so pay difference for by race. So for every $1 that a white man earns, an Asian man earns this amount. Asian women, white women, Black men, Native American men, and then as you progress downwards. So this is very, very creative. You can also be able to use this to do a very, very common example in terms of inflation. So for example, for South Sudan, you can be able to use it to show how much the South Sudanese currency has decreased in value compared to the United States currency. I'm able to do something very basic like that. And then of course, just ensure that you include the labels, then use the various funds to be able to show the inflation and the value decrease. And then another one has been done by Al Jazeera Labs. So general population, so the distribution of men and women in a general sample population. And then, so M represents men and W represents women. So general population, working artists, and then those who are working in museum collections. So really, you find that in museum collections, the number of men who are working there are overly represented in terms of in correlation to how the general population is distributed between men and women. So you find that there is a very, very higher concentration of men in terms of a proportion working in museums compared to, let's say, those who are working as artists and those who are in the general population. And then percentage of not reporting crimes to the police. Car theft, 20%, domestic violence, 51%, rape or sexual assault, 77%. So she uses a face as a standard representation of a person not doing the reporting. And then she uses at the level of their hand to display the percentage. So you see now this one and this one, there is a proportional correlation of how the hand is placed on the face to represent the percentage of cases that are reported to the police for the particular type of crime. Then endangered species, this was not a bit clear, but she was using it to represent how the endangered species can be able to fit into a tray. So this one was done by Al Jazeera, also another one done by Al Jazeera. And then being Black and sick in the US. So in terms of cost, then medical history, and then how much you expected to spend. Then 8 days in the US. And then they use a president, George H.W. Bush, to fully explain the spike in the number of deaths which occurred because of AIDS for that particular time period. Then average press coverage of a terrorist attack. This is a very, very applicable visualization. So to explain the kind of perpetrator, So to explain, is there a correlation between the perpetrator and the amount of coverage the terrorist attack gets? So what she was able to show is if the perpetrator is a non-Muslim, it gets an average of 15 headlines. But if a perpetrator is a Muslim, it gets an average of 105 headlines. So using of course, the mics and then the representation for the non-Muslim perpetrator and the Muslim perpetrator, to be able to show how much press coverage each gets. And then how one will distribute the $1 bill that they have earned. And then of course, so are you a mom? Yes. Are you married or not married? Yes. Then she uses that to represent like you only get 0.5%, 0.5% of the $1. So it just uses the distribution to explain the gender difference between the genders and also for the races. So that marks the end of the visualizations, both the computer aided and the handcrafted. Now time is quite spent, so I'm just going to look at some examples, but instead of us going straight to the examples, we're just going to skip that part and just go to Flourish to be able to use it as a tool. So we can take a 5-minute break. Maybe people can use it to fill the attendance, and then we can be able to jump into Flourish right away. Is that okay? Or we can continue, guys. Can we continue?
Let's finish on this.
I think we can take a break.
Okay, we can take a 5-minute break, and the attendance has been shared in the chat box. The attendance has been shared on the chat box, so we can take maybe a 5-minute break and be back in 5 minutes. So people should not. So maybe you can get something, and then you can be able to join back into the class. We're going to look at introduction to Flourish for today, and then for an in-depth on Thursday, together with introduction to Datawrapper. So we can take the 5-minute break, and then we can So guys, I think we can continue. I hope you're all there. So we are going to cover for the next, so this last part of this class and the class next week on Thursday, we're going to cover two tools that can be used to do the visualizations. So really technically what we are going to do is we are going to do practicals for the tools, for the types of graphs that I had explained before. So I'm going to make sure that we cover at least each of them for each tool, so that you can be able to really understand how you can be able to really customize the graphs and ensure that it fits properly with the message that we want to communicate. So this tool called Flourish is a very powerful tool that was developed by some guys in the UK. And what they do is they give you templates that you can be able to use to convert your data into graphs. So this tool is web-based, so you can be able to access it as long as you have internet access. And what it does is you do not have to really install. You do not actually install it on your computer, but you can be able to access it directly from. Your web browser, and it gives you the ability to be able to kind of technically move around with your data visualizations, so that you do not have to like carry your, like your machine or anything. You just sign in and you're good to go. So it's web-based and it has several options. So you can be able, just going to go through each of them. So it has several options up here. So it has features, it has examples, it has pricing, it has sign up. So really where somebody usually starts is on the sign up part. So if you want to create an account, if you want to use it, you have to create an account. There is a free option, which is very, very applicable. Like you can be able to use it to do very many things. Then of course there is an enterprise, and then there is another option. So sign up is where you can be able to create your account. So you just, it's going straight to my account because I have an account. And then the pricing, you can be able to, it has three options. So free, publish, and enterprise. So really for the free, you can be able to do unlimited projects, wide range of templates, full privacy, and then publish publicly or embed on your site with attribution. And then it has responsive graphics that work well on desktop, mobile, and tablet. And of course, the other two are explained there. And then we have features. So features, just going to go through the introductions. So it is explaining what it's able to do. So explore and explain your data with beautiful visualization and stories. Publish, present, or download. No need to code or install software. So it gives you stunning visualizations, so easy to make world-class visuals from our library of flexible templates. So by flexible, they mean is they provide you the template, but you can be able to customize it into like the colors you want, into also a few other responsive items that you can be able to look at. We are going to look at each of them when we do the examples. So starting visualizations. So your graphics, your style, custom themes, ensure everything aligns with your brand guidelines, especially with the colors. You can be able to create stories, not dashboards, explain your data online or in person with animated slideshows. Then it's responsive for all devices. You can be able to seamlessly embed on your site in seconds or download to self-host. Then in your upload spreadsheet, you can connect to a live source or integrate with an API. Then of course, storytelling made simple. Create impressive stories on your site with no custom code. Then you do not have to install anything and be able to have interactive toolkit. So not just visualization, create everything from quizzes to carousels, then unlimited flexibility. Then of course, edit our workflows, and you can get help wherever you need it. So another good feature is even if you close your account, published projects will still be able to work. So for example, if you lose your email account or it's hacked, you can always be able to access published visualizations. Then it has an about page, which explains about the organization, the company. It has a blog, it has careers, it has help, then it has signing. I'm just going to look at the blog. It's quite slow. So a blog, data storytelling and data visualization and storytelling. So it has a huge amount of content that you can actually be able to read. And when you do not understand something, you can always come to the blog and you can be sure that you will be able to find it. So you can be able to look at all, can be able to filter our products, masters, projects, theory, customers, company. Just going to look at some of them. So this is like an explainer blog. So posted in early this month. So 4 metrics to visualize in your elections coverage. So from voting intentions to results, learn how you can bring elections data to life with interactive graphics. So how to effectively tell stories with data to convey a meaningful message across your industry. So why data storytelling is important for your business. 4 data visualization mistakes you are probably making and how to fix them. How to plot lines on a map and bring them to life with animation. So visualize everything from railway lines to disputed borders with a new layer in our 3D map templates. Our Data Explorer template helps you find the stories in your data and tell them beautifully. So allows you to move between various chart and map types to create rich and compelling stories. So it has a lot of content. And I really encourage each of us to be able to study each of them, because if you can be able to go through each of them, you can really get good in terms of using the tool. So bring your text to life using our text annotator, choosing the right map type for your data, automated column selection, an easier way of adding data to Flourish, introducing interactive timelines, being built on in 8 charts from type breaks to type to ticket costs. So you see, you can be able to really understand a lot of the things about the tool by just studying the articles that they have put the blogs. And packing nature's complex dynamics of data storytelling. So really that is the part for the blog. And then careers, of course, if they have job openings, they always post it here. And then if you have anything that you need to ask, can be able to use the help tool. I'm just going to sign in and then show to us a few things before we wrap up the class for today. Tool, so that when we do the examples, the application, how we are using it. So this is for my account. So my projects, my account, upgrade, sign out. So this is my account. So for each account, there are there are several things. You can create a new visualization or a new story. So a visualization is a template with your data and settings, but a story is an animated presentation of one or more visualizations. So for us to be able to make a data story, you need to have several visualizations that you've already done on your account. Then how you can be able to arrange your work, how the work will be displayed here. So you have folders, can have all projects, or you can add a new folder as such. You can sort by date edited or alphabetically. You can show just the visualizations, the stories, and those that have been published. You can be able to alter the view. in terms of the grids or the numbers. And then these are all the visualizations that I've done using this tool since the beginning of the time I started using it. So if you want to access the visualizations, so here on my projects, you can be able to select what you want. But I just wanted to show for us something here. So in this show part, you can be able to either show all your visualizations, all your stories, and all your published content, or you can be able to just show specific you can be able to just show using and just click there. So as I said that a selection of different kinds of visuals you have, and we are going to look at how you can be able to make it. So I'm just showing to you the examples of data stories. You can have a map, you can have several other things that you can be able to display. So just going to do this part for new visualization as an explainer, and then we are going to come to the end of our class. On this visualization, if you want to make a new visualization, you can be able to choose from so many templates, which we are going to look at. So the templates are segmented in terms of type. So we have the first example is basic types of charts, single or grid. So before I do that, let me just share with you guys this link so that the assignment for this class will be that each of us should be able to ensure that we have an account by the time we come to the class on Tuesday, on Thursday. So use that link that I have shared on the chat to be able to create your account so that when you do the examples on Thursday, you can be able to follow it and practice on your own. So we have the templates, we have lines, bar, and charts. So these are basic types of charts, single or in a grid. So we have starting points, we have area charts, we have bar charts, we have column charts, we have all kinds of charts that are just basic. And we have projector maps. So make data maps with regions, shading, and/or points, adapt an existing example, or upload your own geographic boundary file. You're going to look at the examples. So you have for Africa, you have for Argentina, you have for India, you have for France, and then you also have for a few other countries. And you also, of course, have for the world. Then we have scatter plots, powerful scatter plots with optional time slider, miniatures, and tracker lines. So we have a basic scatter plot. This one are good for showing overall distribution of a variable and individual data points. A box plot for comparing basic features of multiple distributions all at once. Bubble chart, connected dots, dot plots, Armstrong string chart, Fortran chart, scatter with filter, then small multiples. Then we have a 3D map for displaying regions, lines, and points with optimal time slider, then for a few countries. We have a hierarchy. Remember, we just looked at hierarchy in the previous hour. We have hierarchical bars, we have packed circles, we have radial sunburst and trim up. We have a line chart trace. So this is a very specific type of line chart because it's animated. It's an animated or line or bump chart to show changing rank over time. We are going to look at them. And then we have a radar map, compares entities across multiple metrics with radar or spider charts, star charts, and radio bar charts. We have a bar chart face, which is very similar to the line chart. So we have both a bar and a column chart. Then we have a Sankey diagram, like the one we had done for the sale of wheat exports from Russia and Ukraine to the various destinations across the world. We have a data explorer, we have draw line chart, heat map, and a few other things, pictograms, portraits. So really, you cannot run out of things that are samples that you can be able to use to visualize. So I just want to highlight one thing in terms of these templates. When you see a template that has a star, it means that it's a paid version for you to be able to use it. So for example, if you try to click on this, it's not going to work because you have to be able to have the paid version for you to be able to access it. But for the rest that not have the stars and the color and the highlight color, you can be able to use to be able to each of these templates and try. I'm just going to look at an example bar chart. My internet will be able to load. So it's there's a explainer text down there says good, especially on small screens. So you can be able to see the explanations when you put the mouse where each of the visualization is. So now it's loading. So now it's showing us something very interesting. We're going to look. So for each chart, there are two options, like two segments. We have the preview part, which lets you preview the visualization that you're making, and then there is the data part, which gives you the ability to be able to input the data that you want to have. So for this particular part, which is usually the starting point, so once you have opened the visualization that you want, you come to the data to be able to customize the data that you have. You realize that all the data, all the visualization have sample data, because you cannot be able to display what the visualization will look like without the sample data. So that's why all of it comes with sample data. That's why when you come to this tab for data, it's not blank. You'll never find it being blank, because if you have it blank, these lines, these bars will not display. There's nothing, there will be nothing to visualize. I'm just going to look at the data part. So there are two ways you can be able to input the data. You can be able to just select this data, then replace it. So like, let's just replace this and click the yes. Let's just if you press backspace, you can be able to, it will clear. Or, and then you can also, you cannot be able to, let's say, Kenya, and then start stuff. Just using a random example. Then here we have 5, 4, okay, we can have 6, 7, not 78, 9. And then here we have, let's say, 6. Here we can have 8. Here we have 1. Here we have 4. Here we have 2. And here we have 8. And here we can have 1, 9, 9, 5. Let's say 1, 3. Then we can have 4 here. So there you can be able to input the data like that, just a basic key. And then once you have your data, there is this option where you can be able to select the columns to visualize on the right hand corner. So it gives you the ability to be able to customize the bars that you want to visualize. So I want you guys to notice something, because the previous data was from column B to column E. That's why the visualization is from B to E. And then of course the labels, this is a column of names or times. So here we can have for the years. So we have A, Then we have the values that we want to visualize. So here now, because we only have values B and C, and I want you guys to notice something. When I have chosen from the columns here, they are going to be highlighted here with the exact same color. So if I have, let's say, B and C, if I press enter, you see that the rows D, column D and column E disappear from the highlight, like they are not highlighted anymore. But if I put E, it's going to put it back. Another thing I want you guys to notice is the values that you put here, they are capital letters by default. So you do not have to keep putting caps lock and all that. That's why even here when you highlight, it says type in column IDs here, for example, A, B, D, A, B, D, or A to D. So here we can have B to C. And then so this is one or more columns of numbers. And then we have a chart grid, we have a row filter, we have information for custom pop-ups. We are going to look at them when you look at in-depth. So once we have selected the columns for the labels and for the values, if we have a preview, you see automatically my data has selected. My data has automatically updated and moving. So you see now we now have 2 columns for each year. Two columns for each year instead of the previous one when we had 4. And then you also notice that here for the key, we have highlight for Kenya and for South Sudan. But then if I had chosen here from B to E, you see it's highlighted. Therefore, when I come to the preview, I am going to have 2 series that are blank because the columns are selected, but the data is blank. You see that here it's blank, but the columns are selected. So you have to be very careful for this column selection to be able to ensure that you do not have trouble on your, so that you do not have trouble for your key. I just wanted to highlight that. You see now the colors have been chosen. And then of course now we have, for each year, we have the value for Kenya and value for South Sudan. And then for this particular other part, this right part for the preview, you can be able to customize your visualization into what you want it to become. Of course, one thing that I forgot to mention is you have to rename your visualization. You have to rename your visualization. I'm just choosing a private, a random name. So for Kenya versus South Sudan. So here on this part that says select a template is line bars and charts. Down here you have these different icons that enable you to customize the visualization into the way that you want it to be. Because you see that here now the visualization is very basic. We just have the names, the legend, and then for each particular bar. But then you see now we do not have a title, we do not have X and Y labels, so we do not even know what these labels are. Can be able to really customize them and make it fit into what you want it to be. So a chart type, you can be able to have several things here. So for bar chart, there are 2 bar charts, 2 types of bar charts in this tool. There is a stacked bar chart and there is a grouped bar chart. So this is a group bar chart. But if we select stack down here, you see the bars are stacked on top of each other. So just make sure that you can be able to remember the difference. Of course, you can be able to switch between the values, the types of line, the types of charts, because here the template provides for you line chart, bar charts, or pie charts. So that's why you can be able to switch between line charts, area charts, depending on what you want. Area charts stacked by percentage. And then we have a stream graph. We have a column chart that's grouped. So they are now perpendicular instead of diagonal, instead of cross. And then we have column chart stacked on top of each other. Then we have a column chart stacked by percentage, column chart stacked by as a waterfall, then column chart, and then the bar chart, which is the one we will have. So grouped or stacked. So it shows you that the power of the tool to be able to really ensure that you choose whatever you want. So let's just use the one that we had as the template. And then once you have chosen the visualization that you want, you can be able to change the grid mode between single and grid of charts. So you can be able to have multiple charts. So you say group of charts. You see the data for Kenya is graphed separately from the data for South Sudan. Because you see now here we had these two data columns. Each column, the column for Kenya and the column for South Sudan. Then we have, of course, the year. So if you have a grid of charts, we are going to have the charts being disintegrated into the individual columns. So grid of charts will represent one column for one chart. But if you have a single chart, that's all going to be to be stuck together. And of course, height mode, you can be able to adjust auto, standard, aspect ratio. You see it's altering how it's displaying. And then the sort mode, you see if I sort by the data sheet or by the value or by the labels. So for the labels, it's not able to sort, but for the values, it's able to sort. So by value, it means we are sorting these values and complete. Of course, it's a complete. So we are sorting by using these values instead of using the years. So it's preferable to just sort it by the data sheet. And then controls and filters, we're going to look at that later because our time is far much gone. I just want to show us how we can be able to label the axis, then we are going to finish the class. So down here we have labels. So labels is the data labels that we are seeing here. So you can either have them above the bars or along the axis. You see, it takes them to the axis. You can choose that. And then, of course, you can be able to alter like the size. You can make it bold. You can increase the size. You can change the color. Then the data point labels is for each individual data point. You see, if I put the pointer there, it's highlighting that Kenya 2017 has 8. But if I activate this further show data labels, you see it's automatically going to show the data labels. So I do not have to keep highlighting to show which one is what is the value of each bar chart. I'm just going to add the x-axis. So the x-axis, you can have it at the top or at the bottom. So let's put it at the top. So you see the x-axis automatically highlights up here. And then you can have the text. So let's say something random, like let's say annual wheat production. Then metric tons. Something basic. I press enter, you see automatically it's going to update. And then of course you can be able to do the styling. So can change the color, you can make it bold or regular, you can change its size, you can change its color, see the color scale that you can choose from. And the size I'm able to move up or down, so make it bigger or make it smaller. Then of course the padding, and of course that's for the spacing. Okay, so that is how you put the axis. So you can also be able to highlight how the text will be, the position, so left, right, or default. So we put it at the left. So to the left are the data labels, or to the right of the data labels, but then the default is they are directly above each other. So you can be able to turn on the grid lines. So we see the grid lines. So we say that grid lines are only necessary for absolute precision. So for this particular visualization, it's not necessary. So once you are done with the x-axis, you just click here. It's going to undo the x-axis. And then the y-axis, you can be able to change also. And then here you can just have the year. And then of course, once you have decided how it will be, so axis visible, so above or below, and also have the grid lines as depending on how you have altered your data. Then the plot background, you can choose a color or an image. So if you put on color, that's the default color, but you can be able to customize it, or you can be able to put the image of the organization. And then legend, you can put it on or off. So let's say we put it off, you put it on, can be able to do that. And be able to customize the filters, then the alignment, depending on what you want. And then of course, can have a header. And then you can have here with production. Then of course you can have the styling depending on how you want it to be. And then you can have, you don't even have to have the subtitle and the text, but you can be able to align it in whichever way that you want. As for the header, and then for the footer, of course, you can be able to explain like the source of the data and all that kind of stuff. We're going to look at in depth when we look at that. So let's say that our visualization is complete. So if you want it to be displayed like that, you can be able to export this and publish. I'm just going to do this last part because our time is spent. You can be able to publish this. And once you publish it, you can be able to now download and share it with your friends. So once you are satisfied that you have customized your title, your header, your legend, your axis labels, and then the visualization that you want, you come to this part up here that says export and publish. So if you export and publish, it gives you the ability to be able to share it with other people. So can be able to do several things. Can be able to publish, to share, and embed. So publish, to share, and embed provides you with a link, but you can also be able to download as an image or as an HTML, but of course the HTML has the star, so it's not available for the free version, but you can be able to download it as an image. So if I press download, automatically it's going to give me a snapshot of the image. So I can change the format between PNG, JPEG, and SVG, and be able to change the name, can be able to also change the size. Then you can be able to show how many you want to download. So if you say download, it's just directly going to download for you an image. And you can be able to open it and share it with your friends. You can be able to share it with your friends. So it's going to download for you a PNG image down here. But if you want to share as a link, you have to publish, to share, and embed up here. So publish, to share, and embed gives you this prompt. So this project will be published to its own page where you and others can see, share, and embed it. You can be able to allow anyone to duplicate your data, or you can be able to have a password for people to be able to open. Initially, this used to be a free version, a free service, but now it's a paid version. So you cannot be able to put in the password for if you publish it for this particular mode, for the free mode. So if you publish, automatically it's going to generate for you a link. So you can be able to open this link, or you can be able to get some link to be able to share, to embed on your website. So if you open this link here that says http://flourish.studio visualization, then the number. So if you say open, it is going to show you how the visualization will appear for different people. So it's usually advisable, especially as you are starting out, to be able to publish as many times as possible. There's no limit. So you just publish and then come and check if there are corrections you might need to make. So for example, have you done the labels clearly, the access, the title, the footer and the header, and then you can be able now. So now if you're satisfied with how it will look like, then you can be able to share it with others. So you can be able to share it as a link, so you can just copy this link and share it with others. Or you can be able to share it on your Facebook or Twitter page, share it as an image, or share it, embed it as a part of your website. So really it shows you the dynamic ability that this tool provides for you. And I just really want us to go and practice as much as possible. I've decided to take us from the beginning up to the end for at least one visualization, so that you can be able to familiarize yourself between today and Thursday, when we are going to have a much more intense class for the same. So I know our time is gone, but we also began a little bit late. So maybe if people have maybe 1 or 2 questions before we finish the class. So maybe 1 or 2 questions. I've shared the link for the tool on the chat box. So if you are interested so I encourage each of you guys to make sure that you have an account by the time we have the class on Thursday. So just create an account. It's for free, as long as you have your Google account, and then you can be able to practice it as much as possible. Any question? Any question? Manuel Sitamoy, I see you have raised your hand.
So I just want to ask concerning, because I already go to the mini, and then I already create the account using my email. So I want to know, because it is written there that there are procedures. Do you want to create a new account? So create a new visualizations, in that place you go to the project. So that is what I just wanted to know.
You already created the account,
yes,
right?
I already opened I already created the account, and then it has taken me to where it says my projects, and then also create a new visualization. So
yes, you create. Yes.
Yes, I press on create new visualization.
Yes, and then it's going to take you. Yeah.
All right. I really appreciate that. That was what I wanted to know.
It's going to give you the templates. Yes.
Okay.
So you are seeing this icon that says yes.
Yes, I'm seeing. All right.
And then you can be able to choose the visualization that you want. You can just scroll up and down to choose the visualization that you want.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I really appreciate that. Thank you for the guide.
Okay. Any other question?
Okay.
Another question? So Gracie, make sure that you try it out. I see that you're saying that you're going to try yours later. It's important. Any other comment or question before we finish the class? So guys, thank you very much for your time and your patience, even sticking around even beyond the stipulated 5 p.m. So really, just like a normal teaching class, really the initiative should come much more from the student to be able to ensure that they can be able to understand the point. So I see some people are complaining about the assignment. What was up with the assignment? People who are having questions in the assignment? So can we go through it next time, because time is very, very much spent and we do not want to keep people for long. So, or maybe Gracie, you can be able to